Hi guys, today I'm going to be breaking down Canada's roster for the upcoming 2019 Gold Cup. I'm going to be looking at what countries these players play their club football in and what leagues they play their club football in, so we can gather what kind of representation we're getting here and the level of play in all the leagues that the Canadian national team players are coming from. So to start off, I've already split us up into two categories, North America and Europe. North America consists of the MLS, USL, the Canadian Premier League, and Liga MX from Mexico. And Europe obviously consists of all the European leagues. So to start off, we have a pretty even split for this national team, which is quite interesting. We have 13 players from North America and 10 players from European leagues. I find this quite interesting actually, as it shows that when it comes to quality talent for Canadian players, there's kind of a 50-50 split in the mentality of staying at home and playing your club soccer in North America or going abroad to Europe and playing there. Now I'm going to start off by looking at the North American side of things. There are 3 leagues represented in North America by the Canadian national soccer team, and those 3 leagues are Liga MX in Mexico, Major League Soccer in Canada and the US, and USL League One, which is the 3rd tier of professional soccer in the United States. From Liga MX, there is 1 player on the Canadian national team roster. That is, of course, Lucas Cavallini El Tanco, who plays for Puebla. And from USL League One, there is also 1 player, and that is surprise addition to this national team and for this roster, 18-year-old Nobel Okello, who plays for TFC2. He's in the Toronto FC system, so hopefully one day he will be an MLS player, but for now he plays for TFC2 in USL League One, and I'm very interested to see if he gets any play time in this tournament, as he's kind of seems to be the most less known player of this current roster. He's the youngest player on this roster, not named Alphonso Davies, but Davies falls into a different category altogether, so he's kind of a very interesting young pick for this team. And the remaining 11 players play in the MLS. It's a United States-based league, of course, but it has 3 teams in Canada that were made before Canada had a Tier 1 league of its own in the Canadian Premier League, and those 3 teams are of much higher caliber than any teams in the Canadian Premier League currently. So if you're a good Canadian playing on Canadian soil, you're playing in MLS. Now in the MLS, not because it shows a disparity in skill, but just because it's interesting, I want to show the split between Canadians playing on Canadian-based MLS teams and American-based MLS teams. Now, from the Canadian side of things, there are 8 players currently playing on Canadian MLS teams, with the Vancouver Whitecaps leading the way with 4 of them, and there are 3 players playing on American MLS teams. Now, this is not surprising, as the way the MLS rules work, a Canadian player playing on a Canadian team does not count as an international player, he counts as a domestic player, but for United States-based teams, Canadian players count as international players. So, given the restriction to the number of international players allowed on MLS rosters, it makes more sense that Canadian internationals would be playing on Canadian teams, as they don't take up international roster spots, and in the US, they're vying for an international roster spot with a bunch of players from Europe and South America and elsewhere, so a United States-based team is less likely to pick them up. Now, before I move over to the European side of things, I just want to show the breakdown of the positions that the North American players play. Very interestingly, is only 1 out of the 6 attacking players chosen for this national team roster play in North America, that being Lucas Cavallini, who plays in Liga MX. So there is not a single attacker on this Canadian national team roster that plays their club football domestically. However, on the midfield and defense side of things, 6 out of 8 of the midfielders on this team and 5 out of 6 of the defenders on this team play their club soccer in North America. And in fact, 4 of the 6 defenders play for Canadian teams in MLS. And then only 1 of the 3 goalkeepers on this team play in North America, that being Maxime Crépeau on the Vancouver Whitecaps. Now, these 2 numbers don't really surprise me that much, because if you look, attackers are more technically gifted players typically, and your most technically gifted players will tend to go towards the best leagues. The best leagues obviously are in Europe in the soccer side of things, so it makes sense that the more technically gifted players would move towards European leagues in the attacker position. And goalkeeper has always been more of a wandering man's position. Goalkeepers tend to play absolutely everywhere all across the world. So the fact that many Canadian goalkeepers play internationally, again, isn't very surprising. And now moving on to the European side of things. On the European side of things, despite only 10 players playing in Europe, there are 6 nations represented. Well, technically 7 if you count Cardiff as Wales, but because Cardiff City, where Junior Hoilett plays in the English football system, I'm going to count it as England. So the breakdown of how this goes is 3 players currently play in England, with Junior Hoilett, Liam Millar, and Jason Leutwiler. Although Liam Millar did play on loan for Kilmarnock in Scotland this year, his loan just ended, which means he went back to the Liverpool U23s. So he's in England. In Germany, there is 1 player. I think we all know who that is. Alphonso Davies, who plays for Bayern Munich. In Belgium, there is 1 player, Jonathan David. In Scotland, there are 2 players, Scott Arfield and Marcus Godinho. In Turkey, there are 2 players, Kyle Larin and Atiba Hutchison, both play for Besiktas. And in Serbia, there is 1 player, Miko Borjan, who is the goalie for Red Star Belgrade. Now, I just want to break down the players who play in England because they do have a very complicated league system there. 1 player, Liam Millar, plays in the youth leagues with Liverpool's U23 team, and 2 players, Leutwiler and Junior Hoilett, play in the English League Championship. However, Junior Hoilett's team, Cardiff City, was recently relegated from the English Premier League at the end of this season, so Junior Hoilett played the last season in the English Premier League. So, well, he currently is technically a player in this English League Championship. He, in practice, most recently played in the Premier League, so for all intents and purposes going into this tournament, we can call him a player with English Premier League experience. Now, what this European League breakdown also means is the level of league that the Canadian players in Europe play in is not too different from the level of league that MLS is. The Serbian League, Scottish League, Belgian League are not really considered in the upper echelon of European soccer leagues. The Turkish League is an interesting one because, well, their lower ranked teams obviously are probably not as good as MLS teams. Besiktas is a very well-known team in Europe, and they're considered a strong team in Europe, consistently playing in the Champions League. So the fact that our 2 players who play in Turkey play for that team, I think, is a good indicator that they are probably better than the average player in the Turkish League. And of course, in England, the English League Championship's very good league. The English Premier League's a very good league. Being the youth system of a Premier League team is incredibly good. And of course, Alphonso Davies, playing for Bayern Munich in Germany, plays on a just world-class team, far and away the best league experience out of anyone on this Canadian roster. So there you have it, the breakdown of the Canadian roster for the 2019 Gold Cup. In my opinion, this is one of the strongest rosters the Canadians have ever produced for this tournament. I'm very interested to see how we perform. With this roster, making it out of the group stage should be easy. Honestly, with a good run, if the chemistry gets going, this team could probably challenge to make the final. That's what I'm hoping for. This team is just very good. They're very young. And because of that, they can probably make some noise at this tournament. So in 2 weeks, when it all starts up, I'm really curious to see how they do. So that's it for this video. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like below. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.